Awakening does not begin with light. It begins with a quiet betrayal. The moment you notice that the life you've been living, bright with noise, crowded with smiles, feels suddenly borrowed, you have already stepped outside the script others wrote for you. This betrayal is not a rejection of family, tribe, or covenant. It is the refusal to keep pretending that your pulse is synchronized with a rhythm you never chose. Almost everyone has tasted that instant in a buzzing room, laughter looping overhead, glasses chiming, when a thought slips through the cracks. None of this reaches me. In that hush, you sense the invisible border that Joseph Campbell called the threshold, the membrane between the ordinary world and the adventure that refuses to wait any longer. Beneath the neon familiarity of daily roles, the hero within presses a palm against the glass. At first, the pressure feels like restlessness or fatigue. You tell yourself you just need a vacation, a promotion, a softer pillow. Yet the unease persists because it is not fatigue at all. It is the signal that masks are slipping and gears are grinding, that the machinery of habit is no longer enough to carry the weight of a sleeping spirit. The modern labyrinth is subtle. Apps that flatter your taste, headlines that sharpen your outrage, appointments that crowd the margins until silence itself feels illegal. Campbell reminds us that every myth begins with a summons. The call to adventure may sound like a whisper, but it cannot be indefinitely postponed. When the call arrives, it rarely shouts. It steals your appetite for small talk, stains the predictable with a taste of ash, and saturates ordinary gestures with questions too heavy to ignore. To heed that call means to open your hands and let certainties fall through your fingers like loosened sand. Friends may interpret your turning inward as aloofness. Colleagues might misread your gaze into the distance as distraction. Let them. Solitude at the edge of the village is not exile but incubation, the necessary retreat before crossing the river that memory does not map. The masks of everyday mechanical life do not crumble on their own. They wait for the hero to notice the rivulets of doubt running across the paint, to realize that what seemed like a smiling mirror is only a polished shield. In that realization, you are not escaping the world. You are slipping beneath its surface to meet the currents that carry every genuine story. Campbell spoke of separation as the first movement of transformation. The hero must leave the known shore to taste the salt of undiscovered tides. You may feel traitorous as you pack nothing visible, no passport, no change of clothes, yet everything essential travels inside you. The question that refuses to be silenced, the ache that knows your name. So the journey begins with a single confession murmured into the dark. I can no longer pretend to be asleep. That sentence is the flint striking the stone of the heart, sending sparks into tinder long prepared by silence. In that flash, the road ahead unfurls, not as a street-light-lit avenue, but as a footpath lit only by the glow you carry. You step onto it with no witnesses but the trees, no guarantee but the dream that moves your blood. And somewhere far behind, in the city of mechanical smiles, another glass is lifted in hollow toast, unaware that one more pilgrim has vanished into the night, chasing a drum no crowd can hear. The call, once answered, becomes a current. It sweeps you into regions where familiar hours disintegrate, where the sun itself seems to rise from a deeper horizon. Here, solitude is not a punishment, but a passport, stamped by the silence that wraps your shoulders like a traveler's cloak. You begin to grasp why every mythic doorway is guarded by emptiness. Only those who dare to be alone can hear the music routed beneath the chatter of civilizations. Campbell's mentor figure may appear as a passage from a half-forgotten book, a melody drifting from a stranger's window, or a sudden memory of your own childhood laughter echoing in a stairwell. Guidance arrives in riddles. You realize that the mentor's true gift is not instruction, but permission. Permission to trust the tremor that tells you the map is not the territory. Permission to let go of goals that once conferred status, but now feel as tasteless as dry bread. Loneliness acquires new contours. It is no longer the ache for company. It is the stillness that reveals your heartbeat. On nights when the ceiling presses too low, you step outside and look up. The sky, uncluttered by city light, spills 1,000 white-hot promises across the black. Each star feels like an unblinking eye reminding you of scale, reminding you that the dust on your shoes and the iron in your blood were forged in furnaces older than language. In that cosmic hush, your smallness is not humiliation but relief. The deeper you drift into silence, the louder the inner world becomes. Memories once mute begin to speak. Regrets reorder themselves into patterns. Victories lose their armor, and grief breathes under your tongue like a reclaimed language. This is the sacred wilderness Campbell called the belly of the whale, swallowed by forces beyond understanding, stripped of the tools that built your previous identity. Many turn back here, frightened by the echo of their own pulse, but if you remain, the whale becomes a womb. At the midpoint of this night sea journey, a flicker of comprehension arrives. The masks you wore were never armor. They were cages. Without them, your face is raw, yes, but it is also capable of feeling wind that could never penetrate plastic smiles. You begin to taste authenticity like rain after drought, and even sorrow gleams because it is finally honest. I pause, traveler, to extend a hand across the firelight. If these words find you on your own threshold, if the hum of the ordinary has begun to sound like chains, know that a circle of wayfarers is gathering beyond the ridge. We keep the embers breathing with stories. We trade myths the way other people trade business cards, and we understand that no wound disqualifies you from the feast ahead. If your heart stirs, step forward, leave a trace in the comments of your soul, and subscribe not merely to a channel, but to the unfolding of your own legend. We are waiting, and the cup is already warm with welcome. Beyond the whale's ribs lies a landscape of mirrors. Each trial on this desert path reflects an aspect of the shadow you once hid under couches of diversion. You meet envy, wearing your grin, anger draped in your posture, longing disguised as the applause you used to chase. At first, the confrontation stings like salt on an open wound. Then you notice that every sting is alchemy, turning the raw ore of experience into the gold of self-recognition. Campbell taught that trials refine the hero's essence, not by awarding trophies but by stripping illusions. The dragon you wrestle may be a memory of dismissal in a grade school hallway. The labyrinth may be a spreadsheet of obligations that algorithmically consume your dawns. The weapons that serve you now are not swords but questions sharpened by solitude. Who told me I needed to be perfect? What bargain did I make with silence? Why does approval taste like water that never quenches? Each answer slides another lock in the gate to authenticity. There are nights when fatigue drapes over your shoulders like wet canvas. The world of the village calls seductively, promising easy laughter and bright screens. Yet you have tasted the hollowness behind that brightness. You have seen how quickly the applause fades. You keep walking because something incandescent glows in the distance, the chance to meet another traveler without either of you wearing a mask. And then, almost without warning, it happens. You sit beside a stranger who looks into your eyes and does not flinch. Conversation unfolds without competition, pauses bloom without fear, and a gentle electricity crackles in the space where two exposed hearts share weather reports of the soul. You realize that intimacy only flourishes in the soil, turned by solitary plow. True connection requires the death of performance, and performance dies only when we have learned to sit comfortably in our own stillness. The more shadows you befriend, the less interest they have in ambush. What once lurked now walks beside you, a retinue of integrated selves who lend their strength. Anger becomes courage, envy becomes inspiration, grief becomes the well from which compassion draws its water. With every step, the horizon widens. The map redraws itself in living ink. So again I lean toward you through the dusk. If your feet ache, if your will flickers, remember this hearth. Speak your struggle in the space below, and let the circle answer. Subscribe not for numbers, but for kinship, for the rhythm of many drums converging. You are not a comment, you are a constellation, and our sky is incomplete without your spark. At last the road curves back toward the ordinary world, though nothing about the ordinary appears unchanged. Campbell called this stage the master of two worlds, yet mastery here is neither dominance nor detachment. It is poise, the quiet confidence of someone who can stand amid markets and billboards without selling their soul for trinkets. You carry the stillness of the cave in your breathing, the memory of the stars behind your eyes. Re-entering familiar streets, you notice how rushed everyone seems, how loud the bargains, how bright the neon thirst. You do not judge, you remember. You once hurried too, convinced that momentum equaled meaning. Now you move at the pace of insight, slower perhaps, yet each gesture lands with intention. You listen to conversations not for their volume, but for the tremor beneath words. When a friend boasts too loudly, you hear the child inside begging not to be overlooked. When a colleague's sarcasm slices the air, you feel the pulse of fear thrumming beneath the jest. Compassion is the natural consequence of having wrestled your own shadows and lived. Solitude has shed its thorny costume. It drapes around you like a river scented with pine. You drink from it whenever the crowd's frequencies threaten to smudge your clarity. Freedom no longer looks like escape. It looks like choosing where to place your attention, declining invitations that cost too much spirit, and saying yes to wonders that bring no applause. You realize that the point of the journey was never to renounce the world, but to see it clearly enough that you can love it without losing yourself. In the marketplace you meet eyes with a passerby, and for a heartbeat the veil thins. Perhaps they glimpse in you a quiet they have forgotten. Perhaps you glimpse in them the spark of your former restlessness. You offer a nod, not instruction, not evangelism, just a silent acknowledgement that every soul is secretly epic, that each hurried pedestrian is a hero not yet aware of the quest coiled inside their ribcage. This nod is the elixir you brought back, the medicine distilled from darkness into light. The journey does not end, it cycles. New thresholds will appear, new whales will swallow, new deserts will glitter with mirror trials. Yet now you walk with a compass fused to bone. You understand that authenticity is not a destination, but an ever-deepening vow, renewed each dawn when you choose to meet the day unarmored. So the curtain falls, not with thunder, but with a breath. You close your eyes, place a hand over the drum of your heart, and feel it keeping time with a song older than fear. When you open them again, the world is exactly the same and utterly transformed. That is the miracle Campbell preserved for us. By answering the call, you earn the right to stand in any room, boardroom, classroom, dining room, and know that the entire sky lives quietly inside your chest.